All right, let's get you caught up on the news for Thursday, January 8th, 2026. Here are the key numbers and headlines that are really shaping the day.
So, kicking things off on Wall Street, it was definitely a mixed bag at the close. The Dow, the big blue chip stocks, managed to push higher, finishing the day up 0.6%.
But it was a completely different story for the tech-heavy NASDAQ. Yeah, its three-day winning streak just snapped, dragged down mostly by those data storage stocks, and it ended up closing 0.4% in the red.
And then over in Washington, wow, we've got a huge headline number for you. President Trump has put a proposal on the table for a massive increase to the 2027 military budget, calling for, get this, $1.5 trillion.
Okay, let's really dig into this, starting with today's market pulse. It was, as we said, a mixed day on Wall Street, and here's why.
You can really see what I mean on this slide. It shows this clear split in the market today. So on one side, you had the energy sector just taking off, with companies like APA and Halliburton having a great day. And then on the flip side, data storage firms like SanDisk and Western Digital, well, they took a major hit.
So what was fueling that energy rally? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle was this 4.5% jump in U.S. crude oil prices. West Texas Intermediate closed out at $58.50 a barrel.
Now, at the same time, it looks like investors were also playing it safe. We saw a move into those safe haven assets, with gold futures climbing by 0.5% to finish at $4,485 an ounce. And, that's a classic move when there's a bit of economic or geopolitical jitters in the air.
All right, let's pivot over to Washington, because the headlines coming out of D.C. today are having some serious ripple effects across the economy and markets.
So, like we mentioned earlier, President Trump took to his Truth Social platform to call for that massive hike in military spending. And you can bet that announcement sent defense stocks climbing almost immediately as the news broke.
And this chart really puts the scale of this proposal into perspective. I mean, just look at it. That $1.5 trillion is a massive jump from the $850 billion budget for fiscal year 2025. It really signals a huge potential shift in government spending.
The president wasn't just focused on defense, though. He also turned his attention to the housing market, announcing plans that would ban large institutional investors from buying up single-family homes. And the whole idea behind this, the stated goal, is to make housing more affordable for everyday American families. So the big question is, how does all this, the policies, the market moves, how does it all fit into the bigger picture of the U.S. economy? Let's take a look.
Okay, so fresh data from the Institute for Supply Management shows this really interesting divide happening in the economy. On the one hand, the services sector, that's everything from your doctor's office to restaurants, it's booming, expanding at its fastest pace all year. But manufacturing, it's a whole different story. It's actually shrinking, contracting for the 10th month in a row, still feeling the pressure from tariffs.
Now, when we look at the job market, a new report is showing a pretty fascinating trend. 5.8% of American workers had more than one job back in November. To put that in perspective, that's the most people we've seen juggling multiple jobs in the country since all the way back in 1999.
And here's another key economic story for you, the U.S. trade deficit. It took a surprisingly sharp dive in October, hitting its lowest level since 2009. And analysis from Investopedia points to one main reason: this massive, more than $10 billion surge in gold exports. Pretty wild.
Okay, let's zoom out now and take a look at the major stories happening around the world today. So, a really severe blast of winter weather is just causing chaos across parts of Western Europe. We're talking hundreds of canceled flights in major hubs like Amsterdam and Paris, bus traffic in the French capital has ground to a halt, and they've even banned trucks from the roads in parts of France.
Switching gears to geopolitics, there was a really big development today concerning Venezuela. The U.S. Energy Secretary announced that the United States will now control Venezuelan oil sales for the foreseeable future. President Trump then added that the U.S. plans to rebuild the country's energy sector in a very profitable way.
And, these moves don't happen in a vacuum. They seem to fit into a bigger trend that analysts over at the Seed OBO think tank have been talking about. They're basically saying that 2026 is shaping up to be a year of major global readjustment, and that we're entering this new era where countries are using their economic and tech power as strategic tools, or even weapons, you could say.
All right, so let's quickly recap the day's top stories. U.S. markets had a mixed day. Over in Washington, we saw those big policy proposals on defense spending and housing. The U.S. economy itself seems to be telling two different stories, with services growing while manufacturing shrinks. And around the world, you've got Europe dealing with that crazy weather and some major geopolitical shifts in play involving Venezuela.
We are definitely going to keep tracking all of these developing stories. We'll be back with another update for you in 24 hours.
Hey, if you found this bulletin useful, do us a favor and hit that like button. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates. Thanks for tuning in.